Good morning, everybody. Happy Wednesday. I had to think about what day it is. Happy Wednesday to you. My name is Tim Harris. It's 10 o'clock. It's time for 10 with Tim. We were going verse by verse through the Word of God. We finished the book of Joshua yesterday. Wasn't that good? So let's spend a couple of days in the book of Proverbs. Proverbs is different. We've done this before. We've been in and out of Proverbs, and we'll continue to drop in and out of Proverbs. I really don't think it's critical to read straight through Proverbs for the simple reason that it's not like other books. It's wisdom literature, and we've talked about this. There's no story, there's no narrative. It's not even that one verse connects to the next verse. Sometimes they do, and we'll talk a little bit about that today. But mostly, Proverbs are like beads on a string. They're just strung together, but they don't necessarily relate to one another. Sometimes they do, but oftentimes they don't. And for that reason, they're just collections of wise sayings. And so we can just sort of, as I say, drop in and out. So what I tend to do is just choose the proverb for the day of the month. So today is November 16th. If you're watching with me. And so we'll be in Proverbs chapter 16 today, Proverbs 16. Let's jump right in. 33 verses, I believe, 33 Proverbs. I like them. Y'all know me, I like everything. As I said, they're like beads on a string, so you don't have to put them together, but they are sometimes arranged. And I get the idea that verses 1 through 9, Proverbs, 16, 1 through 9, probably are intentionally grouped together because they all seem to have a theme of God's sovereignty, and I like it. Verse 1, we can make our own plans, but the Lord gives the right answer. That's the New Living Translation. That verse 9, I think they kind of go together. We can make our own plans, but the Lord determines our steps. Human rights plan their path is what the human hearts plan their path is what the Hebrew says there. It's that whole idea that, we like to think that we're in control. We like to think that we can plan our lives out, plan our day out. But the fact of the matter is you're not in control of anything. You're not in control of anything. You can plan, you can dream. You can put it in your calendar, you can be making plans for Thanksgiving and Christmas and all of that, but it is God who determines what happens. And several of these verses emphasize that. Commit your actions to the Lord and your plans will succeed. It's that same principle that God is sovereign. God is sovereign. And the only way that your plans can actually, come to fruition is if your plans are in alignment with God's will, with God's plans for you. And that's why it's so important to be in the Word, to be in prayer, to walk closely with Him so that you can know His voice and understand the way He's trying to lead your life. Because like I say, if you think that you're in control, if you think you're going to plan this out by yourself and have your plan succeed outside of the Lord's will, then I'm telling you, you're in for a much, much harder life. The Lord has made everything for His own purposes, Proverbs 16 verse 4 says. The Lord detests the proud. There's several verses here about the proud. They will surely be unpunished. Verse 18, pride goes before destruction and haughtiness before a fall. Again, this theme of pride, human pride kind of, is in contrast with the sovereignty of God. Because, what do we have to take pride in? But pride goes before a fall, verse 18 there, haughtiness before a destruction. I think that's just really interesting. That's kind of, I think, become a proverb just in our English language, right? In our culture, pride goes before a fall. I think that there's deep truth to that. I don't think it's just that, pride goes before a fall. I think pride brings the fall. And I think that's part of what the proverb is trying to teach us. There is an innate danger that comes when you become proud, because at that point you no longer see your vulnerability. You no longer see things the way they are. There's an old African proverb, which I love, that says the higher the monkey climbs, the more you can see of his behind. The higher the monkey climbs, the more you can see of his behind. The idea there is that the higher you go, the more up in yourself you become, then the lesser ability you have to actually see yourself as you are, which means you don't see yourself, you don't see how you come across. You don't even see the danger that you're in. Other people can see it. The more you can see of his behind, the old African proverb goes. But I think it's that same idea. Pride goes before a fall. You take on a very dangerous kind of risk when you begin to think that you are in control of things. Now, in the same chapter, there are a number, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 proverbs that have to do with the path. Now, the path is common in the Proverbs. You run across all kinds of, the use of that word, because in the Proverbs, path just sort of represents the course of your life. But I think it's a really important concept for the Proverbs. Now, New Living Translation, which I'm reading, often will lose that word. Verse 7, for example, if you translate it very literally, says, when one's path draws the Lord's favor, even their enemies are at peace with him. It's that first reference in chapter 16 to the path. Again, the path is the course of your life, the direction of your life. And every choice you make is a step down a path. Now, you don't always understand that. When you take that first drink of alcohol when you're 13 years old and you find the bottle in your daddy's garage, and all of a sudden it tastes so good, but it feels so good. And you didn't know it at the time, but that first drink of alcohol for you was a step down a path. And at that first moment, you didn't really understand where that path would lead. But that's the point. All of these proverbs that deal with the path sort of emphasize the fact that we don't always know the destination. Verse 9 is another path one. Human hearts plan their path, as I said, but the Lord determines their steps. Verse 17, the path of the virtuous leads away from evil. Whoever follows that path is safe. See, your life is like the following of a path. Now, all of this leads up, of course, to verse 25. I guess I'll say 25 is my favorite proverb in this chapter. Verse 25. There is a path, there is a way that seems right to a person, but it ends in death. I think that verse right there illustrates the principle of the path very, very well. And I get some of this from a preacher named Andy Stanley, wrote a book called The Principle of the Path. It's a whole idea that direction, not intention, determines destination. That comes from Andy Stanley. Direction, not intention. In other words, it doesn't matter what I intend. If I'm on the road heading to Bowling Green, I'm going to end up in Bowling Green. Now, maybe I went out 240 and turned right thinking I was going to go to Franklin. And it doesn't matter that I intended to go to Franklin. And for that matter, it won't matter how much I pray. It won't matter how much money I give away. It won't matter anything. If I am on the road that leads to Bowling Green, I'm going to end up in Bowling Green. There is a path that seems right to you, but the end leads in destruction. The idea there, of course, is you'd never get on this path if you could see the destination. You didn't intend the destruction in the end, but indeed you didn't see that. So many of these proverbs depend upon the fact of what we don't see. We just don't see ourselves at all. We don't see ourselves the way God sees us. Back to Proverbs, verse 2. People may be pure in their own eyes, but the Lord examines their motives. That phrase, again, in their own eyes. Be not wise in your own eyes. Again, Proverbs uses that kind of language a lot. It's just the idea that you can't trust your eyes. You can't trust anything about yourself. The heart is deceitful. You don't see yourself. You don't know yourself, but God does. There is a way that seems right to you, but you can't trust your own eyes. You can't trust even your intentions. You can't trust your motives because direction is going to determine the destination. Verse 31 is fun. Gray hair is a crown of glory. Yeah, if that is true, how come all you gray-haired people dye in your hair? Honestly, it's one reason why I don't like to have a beard, because it's gray now. I look like an old man. Isn't it funny how in the biblical worldview, age was something to be respected? Actually, it wasn't just, in the Bible times. If you look at, if I look at my parents' old high school yearbook, it's funny how all the kids look like teachers. Like all the women have hairdos like the teachers, and all the men have suits and, funky glasses like their teachers. Because, just a couple of generations ago, kids wanted to look like adults. They wanted to be grown up. They wanted to be older. But man, we have flipped it now. Now all the adults want to be kids. All the old people want to look like young people. And it's just bizarre. It's really strange because, as the proverb points out here, that there's a certain kind of wisdom, there's a certain kind of respect, there's a reward that comes with old age. Gray hair is a crown of glory. It's found on the path of righteousness, is a literal translation there. It's found on the path of righteousness. Verse 32, better to be patient than powerful, better to have self-control than to conquer a city. Isn't that amazing? It's just a simple reminder of the importance of controlling your emotions. You got to have self-control. And then the last one, verse 33. It goes right back to what we said in verses 1-9. We may throw the dice, but the Lord's going to determine how they fall. I came to that verse last week when we were talking about the allotment, when they were casting lots to divide up the promised land in the book of Joshua. And I thought it was so strange that they would just, roll dice for that. But it comes back to this principle, a very strong sense that, you may think it's just a chance, like Yahtzee, but it's not. It's not. Even something as random as the roll of the dice, it's not the roll of the dice. The Lord determines where they fall. Again, Proverbs chapter 16 has a strong theme of God's sovereignty over our wisdom, our human pride, the human way of seeing things. God sees all, knows all, and controls all. Tomorrow we'll pick up right here on chapter 17, okay? Just a couple of days in Proverbs, and then after Thanksgiving, we'll move on to the book of Hebrews. I love you guys. Have a good Wednesday. Stay in the Word, and I'll see you in the morning, Lord willing, 10 o'clock.